There's people with compound microscopes, bright field or phase contrast microscopes that are sitting there. The capability is probably 1,600 total before it's losing all types of resolution. And they are talking nano this and nano that, the whole conversations and what it is and what it isn't, purely from looking underneath. And those are just absolute total no-nos.
A quick break to share with you this wonderful product called Masterpiece. It is proven to taking out graphene oxide, aluminums, heavy metals, microplastics. They also are looking at these MAC addresses, and there's more and more research and there's studies coming out. There's 4 documentaries that are being made on their studies of how they're able to disable MAC addresses that are somehow put into people. This is amazing stuff. I highly recommend. I buy a whole box of it and I make sure my whole family has it. If you are interested in trying this and really cleaning up your body from microplastics, graphene oxide, you can also test yourself. You can get your hair tested, see what you are before and what you are after you use this for a few months. They stand behind what they're doing with tests, studies, and real results. And look for the link below where you can buy Masterpiece yourself. It'll provide you a discount, or you can go to sarahwestall.com under shop. Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall. I have Matt Hazen and Caroline Mansfield coming from Masterpiece, and we're going to talk about the strange world that we're in and what they're finding with their studies. They have new results coming out, and this is the best studies I have seen as far as what's really happening in our bodies. I'm not going to spend much time doing an intro today. I think the whole thing speaks for itself. And if you are interested in getting some Masterpiece, you're going to be hearing how it works, what the results are, what they're doing for studies. I got to tell you, I get whole boxes at a time for my family. I want my whole family on this because it's working to get out graphene oxide, heavy metals, aluminum. Aluminum is not a heavy metal, even though many people categorize it as a heavy metal. It's its own thing, but it's not good for us in our bodies. And, you know, all the microplastics gets out a lot of things out of our bodies, but it also gets out the nanobots, the little nano crap that's in our bodies. And they're going to talk about that, and they're going to show you all the different places that your body lights up and how, you know, before and after, and how effective it was at getting these things out of our bodies, and how many more people are acknowledging. A lot of people on the inside are acknowledging what's happening, and the fact that they've been able to do at now 5 peer-reviewed placebo-controlled studies that have been published, which is hard to do for something like this because usually it's blocked. That means there's a lot of insiders that are supporting this. And the world is changing. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it would have felt a lot different. It was a lot different. Things are starting to open up, and it's starting to thaw out, and people are paying attention and helping out. It's really an interesting time to be alive. So anyways, I am going to have the link below if you're interested in buying it. Otherwise, let's get into these study results. They're really important with Matt Hazen and Caroline Mansfield. Hi, Matt and Caroline. Thank you for rejoining the program.
Great. It's great to be back again. Sorry.
Well, you have more great news for us that we're going to talk through, but okay. I've been watching the Star Trek. I was on a plane last night, and I was watching the Star Trek Picard, it's actually really good because Patrick Stewart's a good actor, right? So the level of filming is really good, and it's just an interesting series. And for all the Star Trek nerds out there, we're actually entering in kind of a sci-fi world right now. I mean, it's amazing how much of the Star Trek technology we're seeing every day now. Mm-hmm. But one of the things they had in the show, it was in the 2nd episode, they started to introduce the Borg. Remember the Borg? It was in the last season of Star Trek, back when Picard was there last time. They had the Borg, which was this collective species that were all connected in a hive mind. They were actually transhumanists, you know, I mean, they weren't human, but whatever that species was, where they had portions of their body that were machine, and their mind was connected as a hive, and they were called the Borg. And in this episode, the Borg was defeated, and they were disconnecting person by person, they're not people, but person by person, individual by individual, because the whole hive thing was disconnected. And individual by individual, they're taking out all the machinery and recreating that individual as a sovereign person, if you will. And that's a theme in the series. And I'm just in the second episode, so very interesting. I don't know how it ends, because I only seen they just started that concept. But it seems in our human world now that we have idiots that want to create that reality here. They want to turn us into essentially what the Borg was on Star Trek, right? I mean, it's not. I'm not that far-fetched. That's really what we're looking at here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's definitely the ploy, I would say, absolutely, to the masses, to be able to create this internal biosystem that they can remote control easier. I think that was what has been sold at the WEF for a long time. But I think what's happening and what we're seeing from people like Noah Harari, who has been like the greatest proponent and proclaimer to how this is a really good thing, all this biometric contact tracing, different advocates, Peter Thiel with Palantir. Now, recently this week, Elon Musk had statements, and RFK, all in terms of saying, like, look, all this AI automation that's going on, this horse race to this AI utopia, like, it's going to be good maybe for the very, very few people at the top to be able to control, but it's not going to be good for people like us. And this is Noah Harari basically saying, look, I realize that I'm actually ushering in a fourth industrial revolution, which makes the untouchables, the people that are essentially above the law, you can call them 1%ers, whatever name we're going to put them.
They're not 1%ers, they're 0.0001%ers, but go ahead.
Right, yeah. But if you take them, what this is actually doing is taking away 90% of their relevance. 90%, it's making it at the very, very, very top, which means they then, instead of just becoming a needed asset and a threat, become only a threat to the people at the top.
Yeah, they're obsolete too, is what you're saying.
Yep. And they realize that's why there's statements everywhere like, hey, these towers are real bad for everybody's health. These things need to stop. That's not something that was so harshly said before by RFK. Harari has been there making huge speeches about this AI singularity thing is bad news for everybody except for maybe the top 5 people in the world. Basically.
They're starting to realize it, but even for them, it's going to probably be horrible. The thing is, and I start to wonder if some of this is a psyop, but the point with these towers, and I've been telling people this, from an engineering standpoint, there are frequencies that work really well with our bodies. We don't have to give up our ability to communicate in a fast way. You just have to use technology that actually freaking works with us. I mean, what the hell? We just engineer it better. But also the Harari is talking about we're introducing a new species and that we're going to get killed off and all this stuff. I don't know if it's half psyop or what it is, because fear really
creates... He's definitely saying a lot of things on the other side of the fence. Now he's talking like, this whole thing's bad news. He's made quite a few statements this week. I've seen it's...
Yeah, no, and he's right, though. And I've said this years ago. I'm like, some of the things that he's warning about is actually right. I don't know. How bad is he when he warns about? And I know I don't want to make, but some of the stuff he's been warning about, it's like, well, at least he's out there warning. But my point is that this anytime you take away free will, I do think that there's some benefits with helping people see and disabled and all that other stuff. But when you take away anybody's free will, that's a solid red line. And doing anything to people without their knowledge, that's a solid red line. And that's what's happening here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about, we're going to cover study results so that the people can really best understand what is inside of everybody alive. There is an internal silicon-based, graphene-based biosystem that can be measured using very high-level technical equipment It is receiving, sending radio frequencies that can be specific radio frequencies that can be picked up using the right equipment, and which has been done. We have filmed it. Masterpiece had filmed or had completed other clinical studies that actually made it into the gold standard of scientific proof. All of our studies now have been put into published double-blinded peer-reviewed articles. That's a feat, right? Because here again,
yes.
most people don't understand this, but it's like this. Big pharma people are powerful. Big pharma can make anything happen. So the legitimacy of the gold standard of proof, the double-blinded peer-reviewed process, how much would one of the big pharma companies have paid, or how far would they have gone to be able to produce a single double-blinded peer-reviewed paper that said their vaccine was safe and effective when the other ones weren't? If all they had to do was pay billions of dollars, they would have wanted that nugget, because that nugget sets them apart from everybody. But there was never one single double-blinded peer-reviewed paper that said the vaccines were safe and effective, because obviously they weren't, and they couldn't make it through the ironclad, foolproof, double-blinded process. That's the legitimacy of Masterpiece having 5 different papers that go over our hair test study results, our urine, our intracellular electrical potassium blood tests. These are things that prove if something is working or not when we're talking about detoxing these components to this graphene system.
Okay, well, let's take a step back though. So that the listeners understand. Masterpiece is a thing that detoxes graphene oxide, heavy metals. We're getting out the nanobots and the crap. You brought up the vaccine because it looks like people who got the vaccine are more apt to have these in their bodies. And you have been doing studies to show that this gets it out. And not only have you been doing studies, those have been peer reviewed, and which is a huge milestone, because usually this kind of work is blocked and not allowed. So the fact that you were able to get to that point, there means that there's a lot of insiders who are helping you because they're realizing this is a big deal too. So there's a lot of silent help right now, which is very heartwarming. I mean, it's very refreshing to see an army of silent people on the inside helping to get this information over the finish line, so at least people can see it and start using it. So that's what you're saying to us right now. I just needed to put it into context.
Absolutely. And there is milestones that are being made here. These are very unprecedented things that have happened because there isn't other products, especially in the detox space, that can say, see, when we're talking numbers today, we're not making claims. We're not making baseless allegations. We can't be targeted and taken out for saying that we've completed a study that the results for a total study group of 27 participants that experienced an overall 80% reduction in aluminum intracellular levels in 90 days. 90 days, the aluminum in the blood came down 80%. That's not a claim. I'm stating a fact that's been published in a double-blinded peer-reviewed paper of a study.
That's excellent.
That's excellent. That's a whole different level of proof that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's absolutely excellent. And that's what we've been telling people, when I talk about Masterpiece, we've been saying this is actually getting out the graphene oxide, the heavy metals, the aluminum. The aluminum's not a heavy metal, but even though it's categorized a lot of times as a heavy metal, it's not, but it's still very bad for us. And all the other toxins. Now, you were seeing under a microscope, and Caroline, you're one of the experts in the world. It takes, let's put this in the context a little bit, to become able to see and understand what you're looking at underneath the microscope. What kind of training and what kind of experience do you need to have? Because I see so many people online doing it who just buy this microscope and they don't really. I mean, there are people that are putting out slides that are contaminated saying these are nanobots, things like that. What kind of experience do you need to have in order to be accurate at and know what you're looking at?
Well, my training was in live blood analysis. My training wasn't in nanotechnology. My training wasn't in materials microscopy. Those two trainings are completely different to live blood analysis. Now, when I trained in live blood analysis, it was a practitioner program, so only those people who are registered practitioners, like nurses, doctors, naturopaths, could actually, complete the course. But what we find now is people will just buy a microscope. Maybe they do a quick online course. Some of the online courses are very good, but there's no qualification that you have to be a practitioner. So people will do maybe a course and then they'll go and set themselves up as a practitioner live blood analysis or analyst. So that's number one. But number two, when people are looking at products under the microscope and they're making claims about it being nanotechnology, my question is, and everyone should be asking this, who is the person doing this microscopy and what is their training? Because just because they have a microscope, it doesn't mean to say that they're qualified in nanotechnology. I mean, that is degree level qualifications, and that would take years of education to get to that level, to know what nanotechnology looks like under the microscope. So we see people looking at some people who are claiming that they're looking at nanotechnology, then everybody else will just follow suit. So whatever they see under the microscope, they'll think, oh, that's what it looked like when I looked at it on this video. So now I'm looking at nanotechnology. But when you look at product under the microscope, I've been looking at product for years, just for interest, or maybe for art, for companies, producing images. And what I see is a lot of flashing dots and molecules that maybe connect up. We don't know what it is. In order to say what something is, you would have to do extra evaluation, basically. Chemistry, you'd need to maybe use spectrometry to identify what the particles are, or what the molecules are. You wouldn't just say through looking at something under a compound microscope, this is nanotechnology. And I feel this is where people, they don't really understand, so they begin to follow people. And I see some of these Substackers, I've talked about this before, have huge followings, and they don't like being called out. If somebody was to say, well, how do you know this is nanotechnology? Or, you're making claims, they get very offended by it, because now they have a huge following who are following them, because now they're saying they're finding nanotechnology in a whole load of products. So you can see how this can go if you don't really understand training and the different areas of training, using a microscope.
Or see, my thing is, I'm not always a big fan of some of the university degrees, because I think there's a lot of people that come out with university degrees that don't really have the skill that they need either. I mean, I'm actually taking my bar above that, but the important thing is having the knowledge and being good at it. But what we're seeing here is a lot of people who are looking under a microscope and it's wrong, right? Like I said, I found somebody who has a very large following that was looking under a microscope, claiming that only at 200 times when you need to be at 20,000 times to begin seeing nanotech, to begin seeing it, to even begin
with additional testing to back up what you're saying. You wouldn't just say this is from what you're observing. You would have to.
Exactly. Even on top of that,
scientists, if Robert Young is talking to another scientist in a university and they're talking about what they have found underneath a slide, it would never come. They wouldn't waste 1 second discussing what they've seen underneath the slide. They would tell each other first how they contain the slide from contamination. There's different types of slides. There's different types of epoxies. They would want to know first what level of quality and material. There's gold stuff, a lot that I have watched and heard, but not really done for a long time. And then the second thing they would do is send it off to what's called energy dispersive or direct energy X-ray spectroscopy, because that is the way you find out what something is or isn't. That will tell you this thing's a banana. This thing is graphene oxide. This thing is this or that. It's down to you're talking about a device that only is the most quantifiable, period, gold standard way to know what something is or isn't. You would never say what you're looking at underneath the microscope. That's only someone that doesn't have any experience in it. That's looking for a problem.
And so that's what I'm saying. Somebody with even 1,000 times, you're not. I'm sorry, you're not seeing a nanobot. And then the other thing is, you got to make sure, like you said, the slide isn't contaminated, because I know for a fact some of these diagrams that are being sent out by people, it's a contaminated slide. I'm like, I know enough to know that this slide is contaminated. So we just have to be careful. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't nanobots. There really are. And that's what we want to look at. The problem is that this pollutes the environment, and it makes it not as serious when it's the most serious thing we can. I mean, the point of this conversation is that this is such a serious conversation that I don't want that kind of stuff to make it dumb and not serious, if that makes sense.
Right. Right. Yeah. I've talked with a couple of people that run their own nano labs, and they absolutely laugh and scoff at the movement, because there's people with compound microscopes, bright field or phase contrast microscopes that are sitting there. The capability is probably 1600 total before it's losing all types of resolution. And they are talking nano this and nano that, the whole conversations and what it is and what it isn't, purely from looking underneath. And those are just absolute total no-nos. And discredits everybody.
It makes it look stupid.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I had to clear that, because I just don't want to be I don't want to even be in that category. It's like, I don't even want to talk about that. I want it to be serious. And if we're going to do a conversation about it, we have to set the tone that this is really serious, people. This is really serious for humanity. And we don't want any association with that. We want this to be serious, because it is very serious.
Right.
And we want to set that tone. And now, that being said, now what are we truly seeing under the microscope? We're really seeing, after doing all the proper procedures, there's nanobots under there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And we're gonna actually go into, and I'm gonna turn this over to Caroline so she can really break it down. But there is, and they have assembled to the point, and this is very high level technology. This is not just some rudimentary junk computer system trying to make people transhuman that's in there. This thing has enough power this is a very well built system, period. And it runs off of our body's fluids, because all of our fluids are alkaline. We've all heard of alkaline batteries. So yes, we are the battery source. We are powering at all times.
That's right.
Whether we're getting enough sunlight or not, that system it works inside of them. Ever since 2021, when we are talking about using the highest level certified expert that takes equipment that you would debug or make sure a room is not wired. When you use this level of equipment, and you're talking about a fortune of money of the equipment. He is someone who has gone to Langley Air Force Base and done training classes there. Very high level certified expert at technical surveillance countermeasures. When you take this equipment and you put them on human bodies, everybody have these signals. So what is assembled inside of our bodies is emitting radio frequencies, and is also being measured for silicon-based electronic circuitry. We also know from studying people's levels of graphene oxide, some people being vaxxed, some people not, some people be very healthy, some people not. Everybody's levels were pretty high. So we know it's getting in from somewhere, not just the vax. Even though there's a lot of quantifiable proof that it's in things like dental anesthetics and stuff like that. I would be scared for anybody out there knowing that Big Pharma operates with total immunity, and I would not take anything from Big Pharma, any over-the-counter, anything that comes from a Big Pharma building. I would know that's the devil's den, and I would kind of avoid that.
Quick break from the program to share with you something amazing. This is called Sloop. It's actually SLUPP-332, but it's been shortened to Sloop. And this thing mimics exercise. It seems too good to be true. I first shared this on my Substack, and I had Dr. Diane Kaiser, and we went through all the benefits of this, and the whole thing sold out. You can't get it anywhere really across the industry. And the people who are using it the most are athletes and bodybuilders and people who want to see extra performance in athletics, because this in preclinical studies with mice increased their endurance by 70% and their distance by 45%. I mean, it's incredible. And it's been shown to mimic exercise even when you're at rest. In preclinical studies with obese mice, they lost upwards of 12% of their body weight in 4 weeks, and it increased muscle. So this is really taking the industry by storm. It's actually not that expensive either. With my 10% coupon, it's about $80 for maybe a 2-month supply if you take 1 capsule a day. If you decide to up it to 2 capsules a day, because your dosage depends on what you want, then it's a 1-month supply. But Dr. Diane recommends doing 1 capsule a day until your body gets used to it. You might not see the same level of results right away that the mice did, but your body can get used to it and see if it's something that you really want to do. If you are interested in this, I will have a link below so you can try it yourself, or go to sarahwestall.com under shop. Remember to use the code Sarah to save 10%. And but let's back that out. That's because they have pure immunity, and so you don't have any weight. When anybody has immunity without any kind of checks and balances, we have serious issues. Period.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
the problem.
Yep.
Keep going.
Yep. Yeah. So essentially, we got down to where we knew that we could measure this internal system inside of people. That was the system that's attached to the W band and the wide body area network. And we thought, okay, since we know that we've tested the various components, the graphene, the polypropylene, the polyethylene, the PFAS, the stuff that makes up this system, and we knew that we could get that out, the levels in our previous studies that we've completed, we thought, well, if we got enough of it out, wouldn't it kind of make the system not work as good, or wouldn't test as strong? And so we started a study that was filmed by the Died Suddenly film crew, who's happened to film so many people out there that they have never misappropriated anybody, run huge campaigns for all kinds of people, saving people, even running politicians' campaign. They're very well connected, and they filmed the whole study. And by the end of it, they couldn't deny, when everybody in the study is saying that they are having undeniably more vivid dreams, that everybody but 2 people said they have much deeper sleep than before. Those are very important parts of the central nervous system being calmed, our well-being and things like that from being depoisoned. And so we actually had the highest level third-party analyzer we could test people's locations. And Caroline will be able to show the charts and go into more of the details. But Caroline Mansfield at this point is considered an experienced study coordinator, because this will be her 5th completed study that will make it through the double-blinded peer-reviewed process. I'm sure that's a very first in the world, and so we are blessed to have her scheduling and organizing these studies. We have another one coming up on microclotting. That'll be interesting. But today we're going to show people how the internal biosystem that is what the 4th Industrial Revolution is all about, is inside of people. This is how it would be measured if, for instance, you were a part of this study. And then we can look at the results that we could expect to get when taking 30 drops a day, not the normal dose of 10 drops, but 30 drops a day for 2 months. And this was only using Masterpiece. And once these results were broke, the filmer started making a few phone calls, and we were on our way down to Mar-a-Lago to basically discuss with some people down there this system. And it's safe to say that with this system, this is well proven now with diplomats and embassy people and agency workers and the regular civilians. People are complaining of this Havana syndrome. They're getting the symptoms of Havana syndrome. And with that, we would have to assume that that means the top of the top, the faces of the movement, the CEOs of Silicon Valley, the CEOs of Pfizer and all them, we would have to assume that this system is inside of them too, and they very well could be getting controlled by it, blackmailed by it. Instead of having handlers or, take dirty pictures of compromising pictures, maybe they just zap these people a little bit and let them know that they're going to keep on being evil and making these insane stuff,
They can actually plant emotions. They can do all that
Yeah.
stuff. I know it sounds like
Imprint
science
memory
fiction,
set.
but they
Yeah.
can do all of that and
All
control
of it.
them mentally.
The system does it all. Yes, you're correct. The system does everything we can imagine it can do.
Yep, it can
Yeah.
do all of that. It has the
Very
Blue Brain,
manipulable.
the Blue Brain project. was a project where they analyzed all the different components of your brain to figure out exactly what parts of your brain do what. And they have that all mapped out. So, and then they know the frequencies that plant all those different emotions. I don't know how far along they are in that, but I know they're pretty far along, and they've been doing it for decades. And that is part of this system that they can implement. It's not that, and so like the Palantir stuff, you know, people say Palantir's taking, I say they've been spending 90 to $100 billion doing all of this for decades. Palantir is new to the game. So don't think that is, this has been in play. It's being built. And same with the digital ID. I mean, I could go on and on about all these things that are already in place. But okay, let's talk about, you wanted Caroline to take over here. Show us what you got.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, first I want to say this was an amazing study, because what it did prove is that there is no informed consent with what's going on in this world. And when we had everyone turning up for the baseline testing, we had test subjects in tears when they realized that they had this technology inside of them. So it was a really probably the most emotional study that we've done to date. But also emotional because when everyone came back for their retest 2 months later, which I'm going to show you the results, how elated everybody was to get this stuff out of them. And we were in tears. The camera crew were in tears. So yeah, it was a very emotional study. So I just want to start off by saying that, because in this world right now, there's a lot of fear about what's going on, and people think there's no solution. But this is a solution. I'm not saying it's the solution, but it's like a piece of the jigsaw puzzle. There's so many pieces going on right now, but we found a solution to one of the pieces, I believe. So through this study. So let me share with you.
Do you want to share your screen?
Yes, please, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
So I put together a little slide deck for you just to go through. So this is what we're calling the Masterpiece Synthetic Silicone Semiconductor Study, as Matt was just explaining. And what Jesse Beltran, who was doing the study for us, was doing was he was using what's called a non-linear junction scanner. And this was picking up on silicone in humans, where usually this would just pick up on silicone inside, cameras or voice recording technology that's hidden in people's rooms.
And Caroline, let's separate out the difference. We are made of silica, but silicon is something different, and so we got to make sure that people understand there's a big difference between the two.
Well, anything that's semiconductor, silicone is not in nature. So this has been manipulated to be a semiconductor material. What we have inside us is silica, orthosilicic acid, that we get from our diet, from cucumbers and oats. Actually, Masterpiece releases orthosilicic acid, and this is actually helping us to detox. So it's actually helping as a component inside the product that actually helps. Besides adsorbing, the zeolites release silica, which also helps to remove toxins from the body. We are made of silica. That's what our collagen's made of. So our body is full of silica.
That's right.
So yeah, people do get confused because there's silicone, there's silicon, and there's silica, and then we have silicone with the E, and that's what breast implants are made of, for example. It's a polymer. So that helps with, it doesn't help with as a semiconductor material. It's completely opposite. So people really need to do research about that as well to understand the differences, because a lot of people can conflate these different types of silica, and then it gets confusing for people, especially people trying to say things against Masterpiece. So yeah, but this study was about the semiconductor silicone, which is manipulated and produced in such a way to become semiconductor material. Now, I don't know if you can see this graph very well. I've got better graphs, but I just wanted to show you the overall picture. So you can see on the left, we've got the test subjects. We had 22 test subjects who completed the study for this particular testing. And you can see that you can see the different colors, green, yellow, orange, and red, they show the probability of silicon up to a percentage. So those that had 100 were definitely 100% had silica inside them, the semiconductor material. And what Jesse Beltran was saying was anyone who was 60 and above. So you can see mostly across the board, the test subjects had high levels of the semiconductor material inside their body. And each box represents a specific focal point, the number of spots on their body. So some people had up to 20 spots of semiconductor material, and they would always be at specific points around the body, which I'm going to go on to show you. So there'd be around the head, around the base of the neck, in the front of the body, on the scapula, on the arms, in the stomach, on the back and the base of the spine, and sometimes on the legs as well. And they were always in the same places, and that's not by accident. So I just want to show you, for example, the first test subject here who had the highest reduction, had 92% reduction in silicone in her body, or what we call a cumulative detection score. So what we did was we added up all the percentages and gave everybody a score, and we did the same again at the retesting. So 3 of the test subjects had a percentage reduction in the 90s. We had 7 test subjects who had a percentage reduction in the 80s, and 8 had percentage reduction in the 70s. And then we had a few who were slightly less, and there's reasons for that, which I'm going to explain as well. So overall, the mean average reduction was an 80% reduction of the semiconductor material that should not be in the human body. And
Wow.
no
And
one's
how much
had
did they have to?
informed consent.
How much Masterpiece did they have to take to get to this level?
So everyone was asked to take Masterpiece at 15 drops twice a day
Okay.
for 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So quite a bit, but still.
Well, one of the test subjects, I have to tell you, who achieved a 92% reduction, actually only took 5 drops twice a day, because everybody else took the 15 drops, but she was an intuitive person, and she felt that 5 drops would be enough for her. So she kind of tuned into herself. And actually, she had a very high reduction. So this was the study dosage. We're not saying everyone should be taking 15 drops twice a day. The dose for Masterpiece is set at 5 drops twice a day. And we've had significant reductions in graphene oxide, polyethylene glycol, forever chemicals, heavy metals at that dosage.
So pretty much the dosages that gives you the most effectiveness for different people, that's still out there. We don't know at this point. But this was, it could be 5 twice a day, it could be 15 twice a day. But this particular test is 15 twice a day.
15 twice a day.
With one person doing it 5. Yeah. So that just gives you an indication that we need to do a little bit more testing. But bottom line, this stuff is working.
Well, we just know it works. It's working. Yeah. And the study dosage for this particular study was set slightly higher because it was going to be a shorter time frame. We wanted to see what would happen over a 2-month period. But let me just show you one more chart here. This is depicting the various places around the body that were very, very typical for people to be testing positive for the radio frequencies. And it was always right, where the third eye was, right in the front of the head, right? The TMJ, the side of the heads, and at the back or at the top of the head as well, or at the base of the neck. And what was interesting is that on the retest, I think it was about 70% of the people had completely cleared their heads. So they still may have had a few spots around their body, but their heads were clear on a whole. They had 100% clearance, which I'll show you. So, this is very, very significant. And this is the test subject who started off with a score of 1,200. And on her retest was 95. And that was a 92% reduction. And she had an 84% reduction in the number of spots. She went from 19 to 3. Now, these results, so this is the first study ever of its kind. Jesse's been testing people for this semiconductor material for many years now, 2 decades. But what he discovered was different was the fact that since 2000. Before 2000, he would never find anyone testing positive in the general population. But after 2000, we don't know what happened after that. Basically, he was finding that everybody is now testing positive for this semiconductor material. And the difference was prior to 2000, these would be specific places where they could pull out this technology. But what he's saying now is with this nanotechnology, he believes it's self-assembling and it's not something that's been implanted, but it's self-assembling and gathering in specific nerve ending places that have high density nerve endings in the body. And that's the reason why they're in these specific places around the body.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, and we
It's
had
incredible. Honestly, this is incredible. We're living in the sci-fi world of incredible. I mean, this is just let's face it. This is incredible what we're talking about right now. I was just thinking it the whole time, saying, I can't even believe I'm doing this with you guys, and this is actually happening, and this is real. I mean, this is real. Keep going.
It's hard to believe it's real, and even just doing this testing myself with everybody there, you were pinching yourself, thinking, "Is this actually real?" You know, we're not only we seeing that people have semiconductor material in them, and there's no informed consent. You can't get tested for this anywhere else, right? In this way, so nobody was going to know that they've got this in them.
Well, nobody would be, I mean, the mainstream, nobody even believes it. I mean, half the people watching right now think we're a bunch of Looney Tunes. And I'm like, this is real. Yeah. But I think it's getting, with everything that's being exposed, more people are saying, okay, these guys are onto something. And like I was saying at the beginning, there are people inside who are waking up, the fact that you got over the finish line on 5 different peer-reviewed placebo-controlled studies shows that there's people that get it on the inside. We're not, the battlefield has changed significantly from 5 years ago.
I'd say we got so much help from Dr. Robert Young and the battles he had been through and his guidance, his mentorship. We would get attacked where people would go get toxicological reports and so forth that were way over any of our understandings, what we were looking at. And I'd turn it over to him and the report was actually proved. We were so clean. We were like the cleanest, purest product they had tested in a long time. And bless his heart, he literally created a double-blinded peer-reviewed paper that he had submitted by the time I woke up in the morning. He stayed up all night to get that off so I didn't have to worry about it because they were we've been through a lot with FDA,
I know,
Health Canada,
I know.
Very well coordinated, funded smear campaigns that real actual experts, but it's so, people don't spend a lot of time learning how to do real research. They see an article they find somewhere, it goes along with their belief system, and then that goes into their tool of ammunition on what they bring out about things. And for us, we've spent everything we could. This study may not look like a big deal to people, but when there's only so many people out there that can perform this type of analyzing on a body, and the equipment he's carrying around is like $100,000 in equipment that is only for people that get paid to see if a room is wired or is for sound and so forth. And, to have him go across the pond to run a study where you have to pay study participants for their time. They're not going to show up for free. You don't just give them free masterpiece. You got to pay them to show up. It's $100,000. Yep. And we're a company that's privately, and it's us. We've all been building the Noah's Ark as we're selling it.
Yeah, I know.
We haven't had anybody helping us out.
I know, you're just doing it. I understand. Being on the front line is really hard, but you're doing it. This is great. I mean, it's incredible. I'm just like, wow, I'm kind of pinching myself that I'm even here, even though all the things that I've done over the years, the fact that even today, I still have to sit there and go, God, I can't even believe I'm living the life I'm living. But we all are, and that's what people need to realize. We're all in this situation. Okay, what else you got here?
Yeah, so I mean, you can see this is just 11 of the test subjects. We've got, I don't want to show you all the pages because
For
it'll
sure.
just go on, but you can see the reductions in the heads, which I think is really significant. 100%, 92% reduction, 100% reduction, 100% reduction. You can just see how significant that was. And when we were recruiting for test subjects, we weren't just asking for vaccinated, we had vaccinated and unvaccinated. And in fact, one of the test subjects who was very, very upset at baseline, he avoided having the shot, he avoided PCR tests. So he was hoping not to have anything inside of him. And when he lit up as to one of the highest numbers on the test subjects, I mean, him and his wife were in tears. And what happened with him is he broke his wrist during COVID and he had to go into hospital. And they were saying to him that he has to have a COVID vaccine. And he was saying, I don't want to, and I've chosen not to. And he believes that whilst he was having his operation, they gave it to him. And the reason he believes that is because in the UK here, when you sign to have an operation, you also sign your consent that if a medical intervention is necessary, then you will allow that. You, obviously, because you're under anesthetic, so you can't say whether it's necessary for you or not at that time. So you give over your authority, but a medical intervention also includes vaccines, and people don't understand that. So he believes that whilst he was under, he was given the vaccine because he had one of the highest levels. And not to say that people who haven't had the vaccine are clear, because they're not. Everybody had this in them to some degree. But he was one of the ones that after taking Masterpiece for 60 days, he had one of the results that was in the high 80s. And he was just so happy with that. And what we found also, Sarah, is the fact that people were saying that, and they have been saying this consistently for many years, when they take Masterpiece, they feel more joy. They're sleeping better. And we know if you're sleeping better, then you're going into REM. And if you're going into REM, then you're activating the glymphatic system, which is clearing out the brain. So people are feeling less brain fog and their cognitive function is a lot better. These are the things that people continuously report. And one of the test subjects said she felt like a teenager again. She felt much more joy. You know, she's laughing at things she hadn't laughed at for a long time. And that was really significant in her, actually. And even just her whole persona just seemed to be so much lighter when she came back, and everyone noted it. So
Wow.
there was a few things that came out of this study. But what we also ran, which we haven't talked about before, is something called heart rate variability testing. I don't know if you know what that is.
Tell us what it
Sure.
is.
So basically, heart rate variability is a measure of how your autonomic system is working, whether it's balanced and resilient. So if you have a lot of stress in your life, is it able to adapt to that stress? Or are you more seated in fight or flight? Because when you're in fight or flight, you can't think clearly, you're anxious, you're nervous. It affects also your health if you're in fight or flight for a long period of time. And we discovered that people with these anecdotal improvements, saying that they feel more joy, they're more relaxed, they don't have anxiety anymore, they're sleeping better, this is actually a reflection of your autonomic nervous system. So we wanted to prove this out because this keeps happening time and time again. And, you know, people who take Masterpiece also write in to say that they're feeling a lot better in these areas. So by taking, what we did was a heart rate variability test, and this actually clips onto the air. And the test that we used was a professional grade equipment from HeartMath. It's the EM Pro technology software. And what it does is it measures the slight variations between the heart. People may think that a heartbeat is regular, but there are actually variations between each beat. We want that to be flexible and variable. And the more variable it is, the better coherence you have, this sort of like heart-brain connection. So you're adapting better to stress, and that's putting less stress on your body, and also gives you all the benefits of the feelings that people are getting after taking Masterpiece. But what we discovered was we were able to now back that up with science, because what we found was that people at baseline, on a whole, there was taking the mean average, had a 79% time in high coherence. But after coming back after 2 months, that had increased to 87%. So there was a 10% improvement in actual time in high coherence, which is quite significant. Now, people usually only get improvements when they're actually working on themselves, so knowing how to breathe better, or they're actually doing some work on themselves to improve their heart rate variability. It doesn't just happen on its own. So that was very significant. And also, a second marker we looked at was the how the coherence score is showing how deep you were in coherence, for how, so it wasn't just showing for how long, sorry, it's showing how deep you were in coherence. And the depth goes, the score was 2.5 at baseline, and that increased up to 2.9, which is a 16% improvement as well. So it just showed that people were not only longer in a coherent state, but they're in that deep state for longer. So there was just such an improvement across the board. And this does tie in with the fact that people feel so much better when they take Masterpiece. And this is the reason, is because when you're removing toxins, it's actually removing a stress from your body. And that's why you begin to feel better and the body can start working and functioning better. So now we've been able to prove that with heart rate variability testing, which has thousands of studies behind it to show that.
That's really excellent. Do you have anything else that you want to show on your slides, or?
I'll stop sharing now and come back to you.
Well, no, that's absolutely excellent. Okay, and you're getting a lot of attention from a lot of people, right? You're getting people starting to ask questions, and like you said, you were invited to Mar-a-Lago. There's just more people realizing that this is a serious deal. Where do you think that you're going to go next with this?
Well, we have to base what we do upon what we know. And, everybody has this system in them. Some people are experiencing symptoms right now, and some people are not. And it's very logical to say that's because some people are turned on and some people are not. And so once this system, which starts off now, the average person has 21 locations in their body. When you take all of our study group and say, how many locations did they have on average to start off with? It was 21 locations. So you're talking like here, either side of the neck. That's a lot of locations to be emitting strong signals, radio frequencies. So this thing is mostly ready, it appears, in the entire population. I think it's the ultimate control weapon. And that in order for us to stop what now I think is becoming really clear to the people who are ushering it in, like Mark Zuckerberg, all these types of people, like, hold on, once this whole thing's automated, why would they need me anymore? Once this whole military system is drone ran and so forth, like we're seeing in Israel versus Palestine, or we're seeing the Venezuela thing, these are very high level weapons that don't involve soldiers, basically, to need them, to run them. What happens when everything becomes automated? So I think we are needing to, if anybody out there wants to have a system inside of them that can make them very manipulable, then don't take Masterpiece. I don't know what to say. It's so crazy because I'm living in a very crazy world now, because I'm having to watch people that are beautiful people and they're falling apart, watching what's inside of them, because you're talking like the highest level equipment by the highest level, a level 4 certified, the kind of guy you got to pay 10 grand to sweep a room to make sure it's secure, and he's doing it, and we're catching it all on film, and we're seeing that the success of this and how it helps people. And
I just want to thank you for putting yourself out there, being on the front lines, making a difference. We being thanked for it. Maybe you'll never really be thanked for it, but know that there are people out there that are just thanking you for putting everything on the line, both of you and everybody on your team, that you're making a difference and that you're trying to do what's right. And You're doing all these studies with your own money, with the profits of the company. So thank you for everything you're doing. I just want to say that. And I know I'm going to have you back again to talk about what you guys have going on. In the meantime, I tell everybody that I just bought another whole box of it. I just get whole boxes at a time that I give so that my whole family takes it. How can they get it? They just use my link and they can
Yeah,
get it, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what you're going to notice is, especially for couples, if you're a couple out there and you start depoisoning your bodies, your synergistic like tolerance levels, everything you're just going to start feeling better not having the poisons in you. It's something we all need at this point. This was not created for a money grab, people. This was never put together for anything other than to help people because there was a recognition that people's health was getting out of control no matter what they were doing. Something needed to be made, and everybody that got involved, the formulators and everybody that's involved with Masterpiece, seeing how much it helped, could envision what could be if everybody was feeling better. And that's why this thing's now kind of become what it's become. And it is, we are in a world where when you test all the levels of everything we could name, forever chemicals, microplastics, the whole gauntlet, our levels are high because we're in a very polluted environment that the people that polluted it don't want that to have to change because it changes up their niche and their stranglehold on whatever part of the market they have. And so we're dealing with the fact, everybody get the stuff out of your body faster than it's coming back in. Masterpiece has proven in every way that they can come up with a test. There's so many clinical studies that we've done that nobody else has done to prove this thing out. It's very gentle, very safe. You're going to grab out toxins and replace them with minerals. And the zeolite is a safe mineral inside of you, and it's going to magnetically grab the toxin. Your body can't metabolize it. Your body releases that zeolite with the toxins gone. It will help in every way, your physical health, your psyche, your mental health, your emotional health. Don't we have a crisis out here with the health epidemic, our mental on all levels? This will help all levels. You're not sick, you're being poisoned.
That's
I mean,
right.
that's the
For a
reality
lot
of
of
it.
it, it is. It's just, well, thank you so much for sharing your results and for everything that you're doing.